Hey film buffs, welcome back to Film Feature 43. Today we're doing a little bit of a review and a little bit of a mini key to success in bringing it together to talk about the holiday classic Home Alone and its many sequels. We're going to talk about what makes the first Home Alone movie great, at least in my opinion, and then talk about why there's diminishing returns with each of its sequels. So I think the first thing that makes Home Alone a classic and makes it allowed to be brought into people's houses year after year after year is the timelessness and likability of the film. Adding to that timelessness is its themes of family and being with your family at Christmas time and be careful what you wish for, which kind of goes back to holiday classics like It's a Wonderful Life and harkens back to that just nostalgic feeling that we all have around Christmas. And it's really helped by John Williams' score that just is the essence of Christmas, that orchestral, classical type music that we expect to hear around Christmas. If you mix in the performance from Macaulay Culkin, who was, I think, 10 at the time, and brings an air of that brattiness.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
But the cuteness and likability that you want in your main character, and then you have offsetting that the badness, but also likability of Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci as Marv and Harry. It really is a perfect storm of just what you want around a holiday film. It can't be overstated that this whole thing is wrapped up with a bow of Terminator-like resilience from the bad guys with these saw-like traps. That was put together by this 10-year-old who we want to see succeed in beating these bad guys because we want the 10-year-old to outsmart the thieves. That's kind of just inner subconscious that we want the underdog to win. I mean, I've talked to people who said that they fast forward through the first part of the film just to get to the trap portion, which I think defeats the whole purpose of it being a Christmas film and ultimately makes it a Saw film. But I think that it can't be understated how the cleverness of the traps and the mindset of us thinking that, oh, a 10-year-old put this together to keep his house safe really adds to that entertainment factor that kind of wraps the whole movie up and makes it a Christmas classic. So the first film was followed up by a passable sequel 2 years later in 1992, where it switched out the Chicago suburb setting for the Big Apple and asked us to suspend our disbelief even further than the first film by asking us to believe that Marv and Harry would find Kevin in a city of 7 million people when they weren't even looking for him. But I think this film did well because it hit a lot of the beats that the first film did. Kevin was alone. He's being chased by Marv and Harry, still as likable as ever. He's setting traps that they keep falling into even though they know that he's going to set these traps. And he gets advice from some older person that no one seems to like for some reason. And you still have that message of family from him being separated from his own family and the older person who is estranged from their family. And you get the same holiday beats of family and spending time with your family. And again, be careful what you wish for because it seems like every Christmas Kevin's wishing that he didn't have his family, even though the Christmas before or 2 Christmases before he knows what happens when he wishes for that. He's still learning because he's still a kid. So the point is you get the same beats, and I think that added to its success, but a little bit of diminishing return because people wanted something different. And the traps were a little bit more elaborate with the second film, and you got a little bit more sense of suspense because Kevin's in a different city, not safe at home. We got another passable sequel in 1997 with Home Alone 3, but with a different family. Very similar plot, a kid's left home while his parents are at work. But what made that film different is the parents came home every night, and so the kid was alone, but not really. I think what this film was really marketed as was Home Alone, but the stakes were higher because now there are 4 bad guys instead of just 2. One thing they forgot was to make the bad guys likable. And I think that's a detriment to this film. I watched it a lot growing up. I think it's passable as a Home Alone sequel, but it doesn't really capture the nostalgia for a lot of people that the first 2 do. And some people that I talk to don't even know that the third one exists. And that being said, most people that I talk to don't know that the 4th film exists. So 2002, 20th Century Fox released Home Alone 4 that retcons the first 2 films and makes Peter McCallister divorce his wife and go shack up with some rich lady in a mansion. Marv is married now and is no longer Daniel Stern, but is Inspector Gadget, and his wife is Violet Beauregard's mom, and they're going to kidnap a diplomat's son or something. The plot's very muddled. The characters are highly unlikable. Macaulay Culkin's replacement, who's supposed to be playing the same kid, is far less likable than Macaulay Culkin, and it just really falls flat all around. So you would think they would be done, but in 2012, 10 years later, they decide to release Home Alone 5. I think this is the worst film of the franchise, but I'm not sure because I know that I've seen it before. I went out of my way to watch it to see how bad it was, but either I didn't finish it because it was so bad, or I did finish it, and even worse, I don't remember anything about it except Malcolm McDowell is in it. I don't know what they're after. I don't know what the kind of crux of the film is. I do know that I think there were either 3 or 4 bad guys in this one as well. It was so bad that either I stopped watching it or don't remember it, so I don't really have anything to say about that one except for Malcolm McDowell was in it. But thank goodness that the franchise died with number 4, and they were beating that dead horse with number 5, so they'll never make another Home Alone movie again. So that's my video, and I just want to thank you guys for... You gotta be kidding me. Yes, unfortunately, whenever Disney bought 20th Century Fox, they decided to try to resurrect the Home Alone franchise with Home Sweet Home Alone. But instead of resurrecting the film, I think they're still beating a dead horse. I watched the movie tonight. I decided that I was going to make a video about it, but instead of waiting a day like I normally do to kind of get my thoughts together, I decided I have to film it tonight because I'm not going to remember half the stuff that happened in the movie because I feel like it was just so forgettable. This film hit none of the same beats, which should to be a Home Alone film. It recycled the score from John Williams, so it tried to bring that nostalgia back, but it used it in weird times. You don't get that kind of grandeur that the first film had when you pan over the Christmas lights and it's a dark night and the John Williams score is playing, or in the windstorm in the first scenes of Home Alone. It just didn't feel the same. It didn't have the timelessness of it. And I think one of the big problems with making a Home Alone film in 2020, 2021 is Home Alone couldn't be made today. And I'm not saying it as far as it's racist or sexist, kind of like in a Blazing Saddles type vibe. I'm just saying that Home Alone couldn't be made because we have too much technology today. I mean, we have cameras and cell phones and Alexas and iPads.
I don't know that.
Quiet. We essentially live in the house from Smart House. So a Home Alone film would go, hey, we left our kid at home, text the neighbor goes over and picks up the kid and keeps the kid until the parents are back. There's no real way to have a Home Alone film. In this film, the parents do try to call the police, but they're thwarted because franchise staple, 4 out of 6 films, superstar Buzz McCallister is a police officer now, but he's as dumb as ever. He thinks that it's a prank from Kevin, who's calling him to say that a kid's left home alone. And to me, that's really bizarre, because he doesn't even go check it out. So there's probably at least 1 or 2 kidnappings that take place on Christmas that Buzz is responsible for in this suburb. There's also a lot of selfie and hashtag talk throughout the film, and they shorten words.
I wouldn't last 30 seconds in Gen Pop.
Gen Pop?
General population. It's where fresh fish get got.
Like how people talk today, and to me that kind of hurts it in regard to the timelessness of the film. It's kind of like if a movie was made back in the 1930s and they called movies talkies or something like that. If we stop using the word selfie down the road because whatever reason, then this film's going to stick out because they're talking about selfies, they're talking about hashtags. One of the traps revolves around a VR set being put on one of the bad guys' heads, and the bad guy doesn't know what virtual reality is, apparently. He thinks that he was transported to some cliff somewhere, and also he doesn't feel the headset on his head, and it really makes you suspend your disbelief to think that somebody would be that stupid, but that's where we are with these films. It's hard to come up with something new, and when we try to do stuff new, we end up with virtual reality headsets that people don't feel on their heads, and Mentos and soda bottles. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, it's hard for me to believe that Peter from Deadpool 2 wouldn't feel that on his head and does stupid stuff like jumping into walls. The stupidity of the original bad guys, Marv and Harry, weren't so much stupidity. That it was just more so not expecting a 10-year-old kid to be this smart. But with this stupidity, it just feels like the characters are stupid in general. They keep falling for the same things over and over and over again. And speaking of the 10-year-old character, no offense, but Yorkie just isn't as appealing of a lead as Macaulay Culkin. He just didn't have that likability, and the character in general didn't have that likability. The whole crux of the movie is we think that he stole something, so why would we root for him to begin with? He's just an unlikable character from the get-go, and it's something that I don't think anybody since Macaulay Culkin was gone, maybe the kid from the third film, has really captured that cuteness and likability aspect that was done in the first film. I've already touched on this a little bit, but the traps in general were uninventive. We've already seen ice, we've already seen trampolines, we've already seen people being set on fire, and we've seen crotch shots in, I believe, every single Home Alone film. So it's not something that is new to us, and they didn't really show us anything in general that was new. And the last thing is, there's nothing to root for in this film. We know that the bad guys aren't really bad guys. They don't deserve to get beaten half to death with pool balls or sugar bags or whatever, because we know that their motives aren't to harm this kid. Where if Harry or Marv catch Kevin, we don't know what they're going to do because they're hardened criminals.
I'm gonna murder that kid.
Where these two are suburban parents that are just trying to do the best for their family. Kimmy Schmidt and not Will Ferrell aren't thieves. They're not arms dealers. They're not kidnappers. And they're not whatever Malcolm McDowell was. They're just people who are idiots, but don't deserve the beating that they get. And by the end of the film, it's never resolved. It's just, both parties just throw their hands up and say, oh, it was a misunderstanding, and everything kind of gets wrapped up. It doesn't really feel like a Home Alone film. It just feels like kind of one of those bargain bin films that you pick out and go, yeah, close enough, and watch it just for something to watch. Ultimately, it's not the worst Home Alone film. 4 or 5, take that title. Aside from the fart jokes and a lot of the cringy humor, there were moments that I did chuckle at the film. They walk in on a family in the wrong house, and it's just this black family reading Peter Pan, and to me, I think that's funny. Disney has a thing for Peter Pan going on right now because they just did like a Peter Pan storyline in the Eternals, so I don't know what's going on there, but it does have moments where I did kind of laugh. I think Erin from The Office is pretty funny, no matter what she does. I think there's moments where I'm going to laugh no matter what she's in. So ultimately, it wasn't the worst film in the franchise, but it wasn't good. I guess the whole point of the video, what I'm trying to say is, stop making Home Alone films. You struck gold with the first one, you struck maybe silver with the second, and bronze with the third. The rest of them, you hit a sewer line, and you're getting nothing but crap. Can you believe how dramatic I'm being? Ultimately, if you're paying for Disney Plus and you don't got anything better to watch, go ahead and watch. See how bad you think it is for yourself. Maybe if you have kids, they might enjoy it. I bet that they would enjoy the first one a little bit better, but that's my opinion, and that's what I think. So if you have seen it, let me know down below. If you plan on seeing it, take my opinion with a grain of salt. You make your own opinion. Always make your own opinion. Go and watch it for yourself. That's the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.